My phone buzzed against the granite island in my kitchen. I put down my coffee cup and stared at the screen. The name flashing there was one I hadn't seen pop up in over a year. Dad, I picked it up. The message was short, cold, and demanding. Family meeting, 8 p.m., urgent. I almost laughed out loud. Urgent. The last time I checked, nothing regarding me was ever urgent to the Quinn family. When I sent them invitations to my wedding 14 months ago, nobody responded. When I called to ask if they were coming, they were too busy. When I walked down the aisle, the front row on the bride's side was completely empty. For 14 months, there was total silence. No birthday texts, no holiday cards. They didn't care if I was alive or dead. But yesterday, a national lifestyle channel aired a segment on hidden gems of real estate. They featured a restored lakefront estate valued at $5.5 million. My estate, my name was on the deed and my face was on the screen. Now suddenly there was an emergency. My father didn't want to see his daughter. He wanted to see the woman from the television. I grabbed my keys. I knew exactly what this meeting was about. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? I sat in my car for a long time before I started the engine. The text message from my father was still burning a hole in my mind. Urgent. It is funny how that word changes depending on who says it. For my family, urgent usually meant Tessa needed money or Connor had gotten into trouble again. It never meant anything about me. I drove out of my driveway, the gravel crunching under my tires. As I merged onto the highway leading back to the suburbs of Ohio where I grew up, I felt that old, familiar tightness in my chest. It was the feeling of being invisible. Growing up in the Quinn house, I learned very early on that there was a hierarchy. It wasn't spoken, but it was as solid as the walls of our house. At the top was Tessa. She was the oldest. She was beautiful, loud, and demanding. If Tessa wanted ballet lessons, she got them. If Tessa wanted a new dress for a dance, my mother took her shopping immediately. Tessa was the princess. My parents loved to show her off. Then there was Connor. He was the youngest, the boy, the golden child. He played football. He wasn't very good, but my father, Richard, went to every single game. He screamed from the bleachers. He bought Connor the best cleats, the best gear. If Connor got a C in math, it was the teacher's fault. And then, stuck in the middle, there was me, Harper. I wasn't a problem child. I got straight A's. I didn't sneak out. I didn't ask for expensive things. And because I wasn't a problem, I didn't exist. I remember my 16th birthday clearly. It is a memory I carry around like a heavy stone. For Tessa's 16th birthday 2 years before, my parents threw a massive party at a rented hall. There was a DJ, there was a 3-tiered cake. My father gave her the keys to a used but very nice Honda Civic with a big red bow on top. Tessa screamed and cried tears of joy. For my 16th birthday, I woke up early. I went downstairs to the kitchen, hoping for pancakes or maybe just a happy birthday. My mother, Elaine, was at the counter drinking coffee and looking at a catalog. She didn't look up when I walked in. "Morning," I said. "Morning," she replied, turning a page. "Don't forget to take the trash out before you go to school. Connor left his gym bag in the hall, move that too." I stood there for a moment, waiting. "Mom, do you know what day it is?" She finally looked up, her eyes confused. She glanced at the calendar on the wall. "Tuesday, it's my birthday," I said softly. "I'm 16 today." I saw the flash of annoyance in her eyes before she covered it up with a fake smile. "Oh, right, happy birthday, Harper. We'll do cake this weekend. Your father is busy with work tonight and Tessa has her drama club performance." There was no car, there was no party. That weekend, we had a grocery store cake after dinner. My father spent the whole time talking about Connor's football practice. Tessa spent the whole time texting on her phone. I blew out the candles and nobody even asked what I wished for. That was my life. I was the low-maintenance one. I overheard my mother talking to her friend on the phone once. I was sitting on the stairs doing my homework. "Oh, I don't worry about Harper," my mother said, sipping her wine. "She's fine, she's independent. She always figures things out on her own. It's Tessa I worry about. She's so sensitive, and Connor needs so much guidance." She figures things out on her own. It sounded like a compliment, but it wasn't. It was an excuse. It was their way of saying, "We don't want to put any effort into you." So I became what they said I was. I became independent, not because I wanted to be, but because I had to be. When I wanted to go to college, I didn't ask them for help with applications. I did it myself. When I got accepted into a good business program, I didn't expect them to pay for it. Tessa was still living at home, finding herself on my parents' dime, and Connor was needing tutors. "We can't really help with tuition, Harper," my dad had said, not even looking up from the TV. "Money is tight right now. But you're smart, you'll get scholarships." I did get scholarships and I worked 2 jobs. I worked at a diner in the mornings and a library at night. I paid for my own books. I paid for my own dorm room. I remember one Christmas during my junior year of college. I came home for the holidays, tired from working double shifts to save money. I walked into the living room and saw a mountain of presents under the tree. My heart lifted a little. Maybe this year would be different. On Christmas morning, we sat around the tree. Tessa opened box after box, designer purses, expensive makeup, a trip to Cabo with her friends. Connor got a new gaming system and a set of golf clubs. My pile was small. I opened a package of socks, a sweater that was 2 sizes too big, and a $25 gift card to a coffee shop. "We didn't know what to get you," my mother said, shrugging. "You never tell us what you want. You're so hard to buy for." I looked at Tessa, who was squealing over a $400 handbag. I looked at the socks in my lap. I didn't cry. I had learned a long time ago not to cry in front of them. Crying just made them uncomfortable, and then they would get angry at me for ruining the mood. "Thank you," I said. "The socks are great." I left the next day. I told them I had to get back to work. They didn't try to stop me. "Drive safe," my dad said. "Make sure you check your oil." That was the extent of his parenting. Practical advice, but no love. As I drove toward their house now, 14 months after the wedding they skipped, I realized something. They didn't know me. They didn't know I loved classical music. They didn't know I was obsessed with historical architecture. They didn't know I had started my own company, Reeves and Quinn, with Logan. They only knew the version of me that was convenient for them, the quiet girl. The one who didn't ask for anything, the one who fixed her own problems. Well, today I wasn't going to be quiet. I gripped the steering wheel harder. The exit for their neighborhood was coming up. I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. I was a grown woman, I was a CEO, I was a wife, but the little girl inside me was still there and she was still hurt. "You're fine, Harper," I whispered to myself, repeating my mother's words. "You always figure it out." But this time, I wasn't going to figure it out for them. I was going to make them see exactly what they had thrown away. Meeting Logan was the best thing that ever happened to me. He was different from my family. He listened. When I spoke, he didn't interrupt me to talk about himself. He asked questions. He looked me in the eye. He came from a family that was loud and messy, but full of love. His mother hugged me the first time she met me. She held me tight and said, "I'm so glad Logan found you." I almost cried right there in her kitchen. I wasn't used to being hugged like that. When Logan proposed, he did it simply on a walk by the river. He knew I didn't like big, flashy scenes. He knew I liked quiet intimacy. "I want to build a life with you, Harper," he said, "just us." "A real team?" I said yes immediately. We decided on a wedding date quickly. We wanted an autumn wedding at the estate we had just bought. It was a wreck at the time, but the grounds were beautiful. We planned to have the ceremony by the lake under the big willow trees. I knew I had to invite my family. Despite everything, the forgotten birthdays, the lack of interest, the favoritism, they were still my blood. I wanted them to be there. I wanted just once for them to show up for me. I gave them 6 months' notice. I called my mother first. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number. "Hello," she answered, sounding rushed. "Hi, Mom, it's Harper. I have some big news. Logan and I are getting married." "Oh," she said, "that's nice, honey. Congratulations. When is it?" "October 12th, I said. "It's going to be at our place. We're fixing up the garden. It's going to be really beautiful." There was a pause. "October, oh Harper, that's a busy month. Tessa might be going on a trip then." My stomach dropped. "Mom, it's 6 months away. Can't she plan around it?" "We'll see," she said. "Send an invite. We'll try." I called my father next. "Dad, I'm getting married." "Good for you, Harper," he said. "Who's paying for it?" "We are," I said. "Logan and I." "Good," he said. "Business is a little tight right now with the shop. Don't expect a big check." "I don't want a check, Dad. I just want you there. I want you to walk me down the aisle." "Ideally, sure," he said, "but it's a long drive, 2 hours. That's a lot of gas and a whole weekend gone." 2 hours. He drove 5 hours to watch Connor sit on the bench at a college football game, but 2 hours for my wedding was a lot. I sent the formal invitations. They were beautiful, thick cream paper with gold lettering. I mailed them with tracking just to be sure. 3 months passed. I hadn't received a single RSVP from a Quinn. I started calling them again. "Hey, Tessa," I said. "Are you coming to the wedding?" Tessa laughed on the other end. "A backyard wedding? Harper, honestly, it sounds kinda tacky. Is there going to be a tent? I don't want to ruin my heels in the mud." "It's not a backyard wedding like that," I tried to explain. "It's an estate, it's elegant. Backyard weddings aren't really our style," she said. "Plus, I think I have a spa weekend planned with the girls." "Sorry," she hung up. I called Connor. "Bro, I can't," he said. "I think I have a thing that weekend." "A thing?" I asked. "What thing?" "Just stuff, you know. It's a long drive, Harper. Not really worth it for a party. Not worth it." Finally, 1 month before the wedding, I called my mother one last time. I was desperate. "Mom, please," I said. "It's my wedding. I'm your daughter. I need you there." "Harper, stop being so dramatic," she snapped. "We're busy people. Your father is tired. I have my garden club." And honestly, it sounds like such a small, casual thing. It's not like it's a real wedding in a church or a hotel. "We're not funding this circus, so don't demand we attend it. You're a grown woman. You don't need us holding your hand." She hung up. I sat on the floor of my living room and cried. Logan found me there. He didn't say anything. He just sat down and held me while I shook. "They aren't coming," I sobbed. None of them? Then it's their loss, Logan said firmly. We will have a beautiful wedding without them. And we did. The wedding day was perfect. The air was crisp and cool. The leaves on the trees were gold and red. We had set up white wooden chairs by the lake. We hired a string quartet to play. We had a Michelin star chef catering the dinner. It was intimate, only 50 guests. Logan's family, our friends, our business partners. I wore a Vera Wang gown. It was simple silk, elegant and timeless. I felt beautiful. But as I stood at the top of the aisle, ready to walk down, I looked at the chairs on the right side. The front row, reserved for mother of the bride. Father of the bride, sister, brother, aunt, they were empty. 5 empty white chairs staring back at me. Logan's grandmother, Nana Rose, was sitting in the front row on Logan's side. She was 87 years old. She had arthritis and trouble walking, but she had flown in from Florida and walked down the grassy path with her cane because she loved us. My parents couldn't drive 2 hours. I took a deep breath. I looked at Logan standing under the arch of flowers. He was looking at me with so much love in his eyes that it almost erased the pain. I walked down the aisle alone. I held my head high. I didn't look at the empty chairs. I looked at my future husband. We said our vows as the sun set over the lake. It was magical. We danced under string lights. We ate amazing food. We laughed. But later that night, after the music stopped and the guests left, I sat at the edge of the bed in our bridal suite. I took off my shoes. Are you okay? Logan asked. I'm married to the love of my life, I said, but they really didn't come. They really didn't care. They don't deserve you, Logan said. He was right. But realizing that your family doesn't deserve you is a heartbreak that never fully goes away. For the next year, I focused on 2 things, my marriage and my business. Logan and I ran Reeves and Quinn Heritage Group. We specialized in buying old, dilapidated historic properties and restoring them to their former glory. It wasn't just flipping houses, it was art. We saved history. The estate we lived on, the one where we got married, was our masterpiece. When we bought it, it was a disaster. It was a foreclosure, sold for $1.8 million, which sounds like a lot, but for 12 acres of lakefront property and a historic mansion, it was a steal. The roof was leaking. The gardens were overgrown jungles. The floors were rotted. My family thought I was crazy when I mentioned buying a fixer-upper years ago. They laughed. Harper loves her trash, Tessa had joked, but I saw the potential. For 2 years, Logan and I poured our sweat and money into it. We restored the hand-carved molding. We imported marble for the kitchen. We landscaped the gardens until they looked like Versailles. By the time we were finished, the property was appraised at $6.2 million, but we didn't sell it. We made it our home. Then the producer called. A show on the National Lifestyle Channel called Grand Restorations wanted to feature us. They had seen photos of our work on Instagram. We want to do a full hour on the Quinn estate, the producer said. It's spectacular. I was hesitant at first. I liked my privacy, but Logan convinced me. It's good for the business, Harper. It puts our name on the map. So we filmed. The crew was there for a week. They filmed me walking through the rose gardens. They filmed Logan and me cooking in our chef's kitchen. They used drones to get sweeping shots of the lake and the massive stone house. I did an interview on the patio. We wanted to create a sanctuary, I told the camera, a place that feels like home. A place where you are always welcome. The episode aired on a Tuesday night. Logan and I watched it together with a bottle of wine. It was beautifully edited. The house looked magnificent. They put up a graphic on the screen. Current valuation, $5.5 million. They actually undervalued it slightly, but I didn't mind. They showed footage from our wedding, which we had shared with the producers. There was a slow-motion shot of me in my Vera Wang dress, laughing as Logan spun me around. The voiceover said, "A fairytale wedding in a backyard paradise." The show was a hit. By the next morning, the clip was trending on social media. People were commenting on the architecture, the design, and unfortunately for my anonymity, my net worth. The internet is fast. People looked up Reeves and Quinn. They saw our portfolio. They saw that we owned 4 other luxury properties. They did the math. Harper Quinn is worth over $30 million, someone tweeted, and that is when my phone started to buzz. First, it was random friends from high school I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. "OMG Harper, saw you on TV, we should grab coffee." Then the Facebook notifications started, my cousins, my aunts, and then the immediate family. A text from Tessa, "Since when do you live in a mansion?" LMAO, "Why didn't you tell us?" A text from Connor, "Yo, saw the house, looks sick, you holding out on us?" A voicemail from my mother, "Harper, call me back. Your Aunt Marjorie just called me screaming that she saw you on TV. What is going on? Why didn't you tell us you had money?" I didn't answer any of them. I stared at the messages. "Why didn't you tell us you had money?" Not "congratulations," not "you look happy," not "the house is beautiful." Just money. They didn't see me, they saw dollar signs. They saw the $5.5 million graphic on the screen. They remembered the casual backyard wedding they skipped because it wasn't fancy enough for them. And now they realized that the backyard was a multi-million-dollar estate and the casual party was a luxury event. They felt stupid and they felt greedy. That evening the text from my dad arrived. Family meeting, 8 p.m., urgent. I knew exactly what was happening. My father's auto repair business had been struggling for years. He refused to modernize, he made bad investments. I had heard through the grapevine that he was close to bankruptcy. They weren't calling me because they missed me, they were calling me because they needed a bailout. I looked at Logan. I have to go, do you want me to come? He asked. No, I said, I need to do this alone, they need to see me standing on my own 2 feet. I went to my home office, I opened the safe, I took out a few documents. The deed to the house, the business valuation of Reeves and Quinn, the receipts from the wedding, I put them in my leather briefcase. What are you going to do? Logan asked. I zipped the bag shut. I'm going to give them a presentation. The drive to my parents' house took 2 hours, the exact same drive they said was too long for my wedding. I did it without complaining. I pulled up to the house I grew up in. It looked smaller than I remembered, the siding was fading, the lawn was overgrown, it looked tired, there were 4 cars in the driveway, my parents' car, Tessa's shiny SUV which I knew my parents paid the lease on, Connor's truck, and Aunt Marjorie's sedan, great, the whole circus. I took a deep breath, grabbed my briefcase and walked to the front door. I didn't knock, I used my key, I walked into the living room. The air was thick with tension, the TV was off. My father was sitting in his recliner, looking grim, my mother was on the sofa, wringing her hands. Tessa was scrolling on her phone, looking bored but her leg was bouncing nervously. Connor was leaning against the wall, arms crossed. Aunt Marjorie was sitting by the window, looking eager for gossip. When I walked in, everyone stopped moving. Harper, my mother cried out, her voice was too high, too bright. She stood up and rushed over to me. She threw her arms around me, I stood stiff as a board, she hadn't hugged me like this in maybe ever. She smelled like cheap perfume and desperation. We missed you so much, she said, pulling back and holding my shoulders. Look at you, you look expensive. She touched the fabric of my blazer, it was cashmere, she noticed. Hello, Mom, I said calmly, I stepped away from her. Hey sis, Connor said, giving me a nod. Long time, 14 months, I said. To be exact, well you know how it is, Tessa said, looking up from her phone. Life gets busy, but wow, that TV show, you looked actually pretty good. Who did your hair? I did, I said, my father cleared his throat. Sit down, Harper. I didn't sit. I walked to the center of the room and placed my briefcase on the coffee table. I remained standing. It gave me the height advantage. You said it was urgent, I said to my father. Is someone sick? Is someone dying? No, my father said, waving his hand. We realized we haven't seen you in a long time. The family has been drifting apart. We wanted to bring everyone together. Right, I said. And this desire to bring everyone together happened to occur exactly 24 hours after my net worth was broadcast on national television. The room went silent. My mother laughed nervously. Oh, Harper, don't be cynical. We're just proud of you. We had no idea you were doing so well. Why didn't you tell us? I tried, I said. I called you many times. I sent you invitations to my wedding. I told you I was buying a house. You laughed at me. You said I bought a dump. We were joking, Tessa said. God, you have no sense of humor. You skipped my wedding, I said. I looked at each of them, every single one of you. You left me standing there alone. We told you, my mother said, her voice getting a little shrill. It was a bad weekend, and we thought it was just a small backyard thing. We didn't know it was that. That, I asked. You mean expensive? You mean you didn't know it was an event worth being seen at? That's not fair, my father grunted. We're family, family forgives. Family shows up, I corrected him. Look, Connor said, stepping forward. We're sorry, okay, we messed up. But we're here now, and we're proud of you, sis. Seriously, you crushed it. Thank you, Connor, I said, but let's cut the act. Why am I here? My father sighed. He looked old. He rubbed his face with his rough hands. The shop is in trouble, he admitted. His voice was low. Suppliers are cutting me off. The bank is calling in the loan. If I don't come up with a significant amount of cash by the end of the month, they're going to foreclose on the business. And the house, he gestured around the room. We could lose everything, my mother whispered, a tear sliding down her cheek. Everything we worked for. How much? I asked. 500,000, my father said. I didn't blink. To me now that was a manageable number. I could write a check for that today and not worry about paying my bills. So, I said, you want me to give you $500,000. It's a loan, my father said quickly. I'll pay you back. Once the market turns around. We're family, my mother added, looking at me with pleading eyes. Family helps each other. We raised you, Harper. We put a roof over your head. We fed you. Now we need your help. I looked at them. They looked pathetic. They were drowning and they saw me as their lifeboat, but I remembered the empty chairs. I remembered the 16th birthday without a cake. I remembered the phone call where my mother called my wedding a circus. You're right, I said softly. You did raise me. I reached for the zipper on my briefcase. The sound was loud in the quiet room, zip. And because you raised me, I said, opening the bag, I learned a very important lesson from you. What's that? Tessa asked, eyeing the papers inside. I learned how to be independent, I said. I learned how to figure things out on my own because you never helped me, not once. I pulled out the stack of papers. I have some things to show you, I said. Before I give you my answer, the living room was silent. You could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It was the sound of my childhood waiting for something to happen. My father was looking at the briefcase. My mother was clutching a throw pillow like a shield. Tessa and Connor were leaning forward, their greed showing plainly on their faces. They thought I was opening the bag to write a check. They thought I was opening the bag to save them. I wasn't. I reached in and pulled out a stack of documents. They were crisp, heavy papers. I placed them on the coffee table, spreading them out like a fan. "What is this?" my father asked, squinting. "Is this the bank transfer?" "No, Dad," I said. "This is a reality check." I pointed to the first document. It was the deed to my estate, the one they had seen on TV. "This is the deed to the Lakeview estate," I said clearly. "Paid in full, no mortgage, no bank owns it, I own it." Logan and I paid cash. My mother's eyes widened. "Cash," she whispered, "but that's millions of dollars. 1.8 million when we bought it," I corrected her. "Distressed asset, we bought it when nobody else wanted it. Just like the trash you said I loved." I pointed to the second document. It was a certified appraisal from last month. "This is the current value," I said. $6.2 million. The TV show actually got it wrong. "They undervalued it by $700,000. Tessa gasped. She actually covered her mouth with her hand. "6 million, she squeaked. "You live in a $6 million house?" "I do," I said. "The same house you said was a dump when I showed you the listing 3 years ago. The same house you refused to visit because it was too far and too dirty." I moved to the next paper. This was the big one. It was the valuation of our company, Reeves and Quinn Heritage Group. "This is my business," I said. "The business you told me was a waste of time. Remember, Dad, you told me flipping houses was for people who couldn't get real jobs. You told me I was playing in the dirt." My father looked down at his hands. He didn't answer. "Read the number, Connor," I said, pointing to the bottom line. Connor leaned in. He squinted at the bold print. "Value. 25.8 million, he read slowly. He looked up at me, his mouth hanging open. 25 million, you guys are worth 25 million. The company is," I said. "And since Logan and I are the sole owners, yes." I laid down the final sheet. It was a summary of our personal assets, stocks, bonds, savings, other properties. "Total personal net worth," I said, my voice steady. $32 million. The silence now wasn't just quiet, it was heavy, it was suffocating. It was the sound of their entire worldview shattering. For years, they had told themselves a story. In their story, Harper was the boring one. Harper was the poor one. Harper was the one who scraped by. Tessa was the star. Connor was the athlete. Harper was just there. Now, looking at these papers, they realized they were the poor ones. They were the failures. And the daughter they had ignored was richer than they could ever dream of being. I don't understand," my mother stammered. She looked pale. How did you do this without us knowing?" "I worked," I said simply. "I worked while you were buying Tessa cars. I worked while you were paying for Connor's vacations. I worked while you were ignoring my birthday calls. I built this brick by brick, and I didn't tell you because you never asked. You never asked me a single question about my work, not once." I reached into the bag again. "And just to clarify one more thing," I said. I pulled out a thick binder. It was my wedding planner's binder. I had kept it as a keepsake. I opened it to the budget page. "You called my wedding a casual backyard thing," I said, looking at Tessa. "You said you didn't want to ruin your heels in the mud." I turned the book so they could see the photos pasted inside. Photos of the crystal chandeliers hanging from the trees, photos of the 5-course meal plated on gold-rimmed china, photos of the live string quartet from the City Symphony. "My dress was a custom Vera Wang," I said. "It cost $12,000. Tessa's eyes bugged out. She looked down at her own shoes, which I knew were knockoffs. "The chef was from a Michelin-star restaurant in Chicago," I continued. "He flew in just for us. The wine was vintage French. The flowers were imported from Holland." I flipped to the final cost sheet. "Total cost of the wedding," I read out loud, $180,000. My father made a choking sound. "You spent nearly 200 grand on a party." "It wasn't a party, Dad," I said sharply. "It was my wedding. It was the most important day of my life, and I paid for it myself. I didn't ask you for a dime. I just asked for your presence." I closed the binder with a snap. "It wasn't basic," I said, my voice trembling slightly with the anger I had held back for so long. "It wasn't casual, it was magnificent, it was perfect, and you missed it. You missed it because you assumed that if I was doing it, it must be cheap. You assumed that if I was planning it, it wasn't worth your time." I looked at my mother. She was crying now, real tears, I think. Or maybe tears of regret for the money she realized she had missed out on. "We didn't know," she sobbed. "Harper, we just didn't know." "Ignorance isn't an excuse, Mom," I said. "You didn't know because you didn't care to know, that's the difference." I looked at the table covered in proof of my success. It didn't make me feel happy, it didn't make me feel superior, it just made me feel sad. I had all this success, I had all this wealth, and I was standing in a room with 5 people who shared my DNA, and I felt completely alone. They were looking at the papers like hungry wolves looking at a steak. They weren't looking at me. So, I said, stepping back, now you know I am not the struggling daughter, I am not the invisible middle child, I am a success. I did it without your help, in fact, I did it in spite of your neglect. I took a deep breath, and now we get to the real reason I'm here. My father cleared his throat. He shifted in his chair, trying to regain some authority. He pointed a shaking finger at the papers on the table. Well, he said, his voice gruff, this changes things, does it? I asked. How? It means you have the money, he said. He said it like it was a fact, like it was his money. You have $32 million, 500,000 is nothing to you, it's pocket change. It's not pocket change, I said, it's my hard-earned money. But you can afford it, he insisted. You can write the check right now and save this family, you can save my business, you can save this house. He leaned forward, his eyes desperate. Harper, look at this place, this is where you grew up, this is your home. I looked around the room. I saw the spot on the rug where I used to sit and play with my dolls alone while my parents watched Connor play video games. I saw the kitchen table where I ate dinner in silence while they talked about Tessa's dance recitals. This is a house, I said. It was never a home to me. A home is where you feel safe. A home is where you feel loved. I felt like a ghost in this house. That is not true, my mother cried. We loved you, we fed you. We clothed you, that's the bare minimum, I shouted. My voice cracked. I rarely yelled, but the dam was breaking. That is what you do for a pet. You feed it and you give it shelter. You didn't love me, Mom. You tolerated me. How can you say that? She wept. We're your family. Family, I laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. Let's talk about family. Remember when I needed a cosigner for my first apartment in college? It was a tiny studio. The rent was $600. I asked you to cosign. I didn't ask you to pay, just sign. My father looked away. He remembered. You said no, I reminded him. You said you didn't want to risk your credit, but the very next week you bought Connor a brand new truck, a $40,000 truck. You risked your credit for his toy, but not for my shelter. He needed a truck for school, my father muttered. He flunked out of school, I shot back, and he wrecked the truck 3 months later. Connor looked down at his shoes. Hey, that wasn't my fault, the road was icy. It's always someone else's fault with you people, I said. But that's the point, you always found money for them, you always found time for them. For me, nothing. I looked at Tessa. And you, I said, remember when I started my business, I asked you to share my page on your social media. You have 5,000 followers, it would have cost you nothing, just a click. Tessa bit her lip. You said it would mess up your aesthetic, I said. You wouldn't even click a button to help me, but now that I'm rich. I bet you've already posted about me today. Tessa's face turned bright red. I had seen the notification on my way over, so proud of my big sis and her empire, number family goals, it made me sick. We are in a crisis, Harper, my father boomed. He stood up. Stop living in the past, stop counting score, we are drowning here. If I don't get that money, we are on the street. Does that make you happy? Do you want to see your parents homeless? I don't want you to be homeless, I said calmly, but I'm not a bank and I'm not an ATM. We're family, my mother wailed again. Family helps family. That is a lie, I said. That is a lie you tell yourselves to feel better. You only remember family when there is money involved. You only remember family when you need something. I walked over to the table and started gathering up my papers. I put the deed back in the bag. I put the appraisal back in the bag. You assumed I would bail you out, I said. You assumed that because I was the good daughter, the quiet one, the one who always figures it out, that I would just roll over and give you what you wanted. You thought I was weak. I zipped the bag shut. Zip, I'm not weak, I said. I'm strong. I had to get strong to survive you. So you're saying no? My father asked. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You're turning your back on your own flesh and blood. I'm doing exactly what you taught me to do, I said. I'm being independent and I'm letting you figure it out on your own. You selfish, ungrateful brat, my father shouted. He picked up a ceramic vase from the side table and threw it. It smashed against the wall, shattering into pieces. I didn't flinch, I just watched him. That, I said, pointing to the broken shards, is exactly why I didn't come back for 3 years. Get out, he screamed. His face was purple. If you aren't going to help, then get the hell out of my house. You are dead to me. I was already dead to you, I said. I've been dead to you for years, you just forgot to bury me. I picked up my briefcase. But before I go, I said, I have one last thing to show you. It's not a financial document, it's a memory. I reached into the front pocket of the bag. The room was vibrating with my father's anger. The broken vase lay on the floor like a casualty of war. My mother was sobbing into her hands. Tessa and Connor looked terrified, not because of the fighting, but because they realized the money was walking out the door. I held a single photograph in my hand. It was an 8x10 print. I had framed it, but I took it out of the frame before I came inside. I walked over to the coffee table one last time. I placed the photo down in the center, right where the deed had been. "Look at it," I commanded. They looked. It was a professional photo from my wedding reception. The lighting was golden and warm. The table was set with exquisite china and crystal glasses. There were beautiful floral arrangements of white roses and eucalyptus, but the chairs were empty. 8 chairs, a whole round table. On the plates you could clearly see the place cards written in beautiful calligraphy. Mother of the bride, father of the bride, Tessa, Connor, Aunt Marjorie, and 3 others for my cousins. The table was perfectly set. The wine glasses were filled. The napkins were folded, but there were no people. In the background of the photo you could see other tables. They were packed. People were laughing, toasting, eating, but this one table sat there like a graveyard in the middle of a celebration. "Do you know what this is?" I asked softly. My mother looked at the photo and hiccuped. She couldn't speak. "This is table 1, I said, "the table of honor, the table closest to the bride and groom. This is where you were supposed to sit." I pointed to the empty chair with the card father of the bride. "I kept this table empty all night," I told them. "The waiter asked me if he should remove the settings. He said it looked sad. He said it looked like a mistake. I told him no. I told him to leave it." I looked at my father. "I wanted to see it," I said. "I wanted to look out from the head table and see the empty space where my family should have been. I wanted to burn that image into my brain so I would never, ever forget how little I mattered to you." "Harper, please," my mother whispered. "Don't." "Logan's grandmother sat at table 2, I continued. "She is 87. She has a bad hip, she walked with a cane. She sat there and she watched me cry during the speeches because my dad wasn't there to give a toast." I looked at Tessa. "My maid of honor gave a speech," I said. "She talked about how brave I was. She talked about how I built a life from nothing. You should have been the maid of honor, Tessa. That's what sisters do, but you were at a spa." Tessa looked away, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Sorry doesn't fill the chair," I said. I looked at Connor. "My best friend from college danced with me for the father-daughter dance," I said, "because my father wasn't there. And my brother wasn't there to cut in." I took a deep breath. The anger was fading now, replaced by a deep, cold exhaustion. "I cried on my wedding night," I told them. "I was in the most beautiful suite I had ever seen. I had just married the most wonderful man. I had millions of dollars in the bank, and I cried myself to sleep because my own mother couldn't be bothered to drive 2 hours to see me happy." My mother let out a wail of pure misery. "I'm so sorry, Harper, we messed up so bad." "You did," I said, "and actions have consequences. This is your consequence." I tapped the photo. "You weren't there for the wedding," I said, "so you don't get to be there for the success. You don't get to enjoy the fruit of the tree you refused to water." I turned to my father. He wasn't yelling anymore. He was staring at the photo of the empty chair with his name on it. He looked defeated. He looked like a man who realized he had thrown away a diamond because he thought it was glass. "I'm not giving you the money," I said, "not because I'm mean, and not because I'm vengeful. But because if I give you this money, you will never learn, you will just keep using people, you will keep taking." I picked up my briefcase. I left the photo on the table. "Keep the picture," I said. "Frame it, put it on the mantle. And every time you look at it, remember that you chose this. You chose the empty chair." I turned around and walked toward the door. "Harper, wait," my mother cried, scrambling up from the sofa. She reached for me. I didn't stop. I opened the door and walked out into the cool night air. "Harper," she screamed from the porch. I kept walking. I walked to my car. I unlocked it. I got in. I looked in the rearview mirror. My mother was standing on the porch, illuminated by the yellow porch light. She looked small and old. My father was in the doorway behind her, his shoulders slumped. I felt a pang of sadness. Of course I did. They were my parents. But mostly I felt lighter. I started the engine. I didn't look back as I drove away. The drive home was quiet. I didn't turn on the radio. I just listened to the hum of the tires on the asphalt. I felt drained. My body felt heavy like I had just run a marathon, but my mind was clear. For years I had carried around a secret hope, a tiny, foolish hope that one day they would wake up. That one day they would see me and say, "Wow, Harper, we love you, we're sorry." Tonight I killed that hope, and it hurt. It hurt like ripping off a bandage, but beneath the pain there was healing. I finally knew the truth. They were never going to change, and knowing that set me free. I pulled into the long driveway of my estate. The iron gates opened slowly. I drove up the winding path lined with old oak trees. The house was lit up. It looked warm and inviting. It didn't look like a dump. It looked like a castle. Logan was waiting for me on the front steps. He must have heard the car. He was wearing his pajamas and a robe. I got out of the car. He didn't say anything. He just walked down the steps and opened his arms. I walked into his embrace and buried my face in his chest. I didn't cry. I just breathed in his scent, soap and wood smoke and safety. "Did you do it?" he asked softly into my hair. "I did," I said. "Are you okay?" "I will be," I said. "I left them, Logan. I really left them this time." "I'm proud of you," he said. "Come inside." I made tea. We sat in the kitchen. It was my favorite room in the house. It had huge windows overlooking the lake. It was quiet and peaceful. They asked for $500,000, I told him. Logan shook his head. Unbelievable, I told them no, I said. I showed them the picture of the empty table. Good, Logan said. He reached across the table and took my hand. You broke the cycle, Harper. You stopped the abuse. My phone buzzed on the counter. I flinched. I thought it would be a nasty text from my dad or a guilt trip from my mom. I picked it up. It was a text from Aunt Marjorie. I hesitated. Marjorie was my mother's sister. She was a gossip. She usually just followed whatever my mother did. She was at the house tonight, sitting in the corner, watching. She hadn't said a word during the confrontation. I opened the message. Harper, I'm sitting in my car crying. I saw the photo you left. I saw my name on the place card. I have no excuse. I listened to your mother when she said the wedding wasn't important. I should have made up my own mind. I should have been there. You were always a sweet girl and we treated you like furniture. I don't want your money. I know Richard asked for it. I don't need a dime. I just want to know if it's too late to know my niece. I bake those apple pies you used to like when you were little. If you ever want one, let me know. If not, I understand. I deserve your silence. I stared at the screen. My throat got tight. It was the first time, the absolute first time, anyone in my family had taken accountability. She didn't blame me. She didn't make excuses about the drive or the notice. She just said, I have no excuse. What is it? Logan asked. I showed him the phone. He read it. What do you want to do? He asked. I thought about it. I thought about being 7 years old, sitting in Marjorie's kitchen, eating apple pie while she told me stories. She had been kind to me back then, before she got too busy with Tessa and the drama. She's the only one who didn't ask for money, I said. She's the only one who apologized. I typed a reply, Sunday, 6 p.m., no asks. No expectations, just honesty, and bring the pie. The response came instantly. I'll be there. Thank you, Harper. Thank you. I put the phone down. One, I said to Logan. I got one back. One is better than none, Logan smiled. And you know what? It's the right one, the one who actually cares. 6 months passed. The fallout from that night was messy but distant. My father lost the business. I heard from a friend that they had to sell the house and move into a small condo. Tessa had to get a job as a receptionist because the Bank of Dad was closed. Connor was working construction. They tried to contact me a few times, angry voicemails, begging texts. I blocked the numbers. I didn't feel guilty. I had given them 30 years of chances. They had used them all up. My life, however, was blooming. Reeves and Quinn landed our biggest project yet, a historic hotel in downtown Charleston. It was a $12 million renovation. We were going to restore it to the 1920s Art Deco style. Because of the success of the TV show and our portfolio, Forbes magazine called. They wanted to do a feature on self-made women in real estate. When the magazine came out, I was on the cover. I was wearing a white power suit standing in front of my estate. I looked strong. I looked confident. In the interview, they asked me about my family. Success can be lonely, the interviewer had said. Do you have a big support system? I answered honestly. I have a wonderful husband, I said in the article, and a chosen family of friends and mentors. My biological family isn't part of my life right now. Sometimes growth requires pruning. You have to cut off the dead branches so the tree can survive. I wondered if my parents saw the article. They probably did. It probably stung, but that was their burden to carry, not mine. On Sunday evenings, Aunt Marjorie came over. It became a tradition. She would drive the 2 hours. She never complained about the drive and bring a pie or a casserole. We would sit on the porch and talk. She told me stories about my grandmother. She listened when I talked about my business. She asked questions. She looked at photos of the wedding and cried, pointing out details she missed. You looked like a queen, Harper, she said, touching a photo of me in my dress. I was a fool to miss it. You're here now, I told her, and she was consistent, she was kind, she wasn't perfect, but she was trying. And that was enough. For our second wedding anniversary, Logan surprised me. Pack your bags, he said. We're going to Italy. Italy, I asked. For how long? 2 weeks, he said. No work, no emails. Just us, pasta and wine. We went to Tuscany. We stayed in a villa on a hill. One evening, we were sitting on a terrace watching the sunset over the vineyards. I was sipping a glass of red wine, feeling the warmth of the sun on my skin. I thought about the girl I used to be, the girl who waited by the window for her parents to come home, the girl who ate birthday cake alone, the girl who cried on her wedding night. She felt very far away. I looked at Logan. He was reading a book, his hand resting on my knee. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. The ball of fire that had burned in my chest for so long was gone. It had been replaced by a quiet, steady peace. I didn't need them to love me to be worthy of love. I didn't need them to see me to be visible. I saw myself. Logan saw me. The world saw me. What are you thinking about? Logan asked, looking up. I'm thinking that I'm happy, I said. Really, truly happy. You deserve it, he said. I smiled. I raised my glass to the sunset. To the empty chairs, I said softly. Why toast to them? Logan asked. Because they taught me the most important lesson of all, I said. I looked directly at him, and then in my mind I spoke to everyone who had ever felt like I did. To everyone who had been the invisible child, the forgotten sibling, the black sheep. Family isn't blood, I thought. Blood is just biology, it's an accident of birth. Family is who shows up. Family is the person who drives 2 hours just to have coffee. Family is the person who holds you when you cry. Family is the person who cheers the loudest when you succeed. The people who didn't show up for my wedding didn't deserve to show up for my success, and by leaving those chairs empty, I made room for the people who actually wanted to sit in them. I took a sip of wine. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. It was a perfect ending, and for me, it was also a beautiful beginning.